It's our sense of sight that gives us comfort. The ability to see our surroundings and assess the level of danger is an essential part of survival, not just for humans, but for other species as well. It's easy to convince ourselves not to fear what we can see, but it's a whole nother monster to try to convince ourselves not to fear what we don't know is there. When sight is limited and the anxiety starts to creep in as the pitch black surrounds you, it's easy for one's imagination to take hold and start fabricating eerie thoughts about things that aren't really there. It's the loss of one of our senses that leads to our heads filling in the gaps, and unfortunately for those of us who are a bit more imaginative than we need to be, this leads to our heads turning against us and filling those gaps with unpleasant thoughts. So why is the dark responsible for this illogical sense of fear that people start to have? Could it be the fact that as a species we've just evolved to fear the time when predators are mostly out and about? Or could it be the lack of distinct shapes that we see in the darkness that steals away our ability for rational thought? Or maybe it's a combination of these things, using the fear that something is out to get us from our innate wariness of predators and mixing it with our inability to see distinct shapes in the darkness leads our imaginations to believe that something is there even if it shouldn't be. I doubt the feeling of walking down a dark hallway, feeling like something is watching you, like something is following you, is a rare feeling. It's something everyone has felt at least once in their lives. It's in the dark that people throw rationality out the window. Even though they know nothing is there, there's still that tiny little chance that something is stalking them that they can't quite see. One thought that makes the dark so scary is the universal idea that supernatural beings lurk within the shadows. It's a common human belief that supernatural creatures and monsters start to come out and perform their nefarious deeds once the lights are off. It's a belief that's been ingrained in people not only through genealogy, but also through culture and media. Things like ghosts, werewolves, and vampires are all associated with the dark, and through the effects of television, movies, books, have all found a tiny nook inside of our heads, waiting for the right moment to spread their influence on our fears. Humans tend to fear things that they don't understand. The inability to comprehend or wrap our minds around things has led to some of the greatest fears of mankind. It's the thought that if we don't understand it, then it must be scary that leads to supernatural beings and their association with the dark, where humans are once again faced with their fear of the unknown. The fear of the dark isn't really all that difficult to overcome. It's the fact that the darkness acts as a catalyst for other fears that makes it a particularly tall beast to tackle. It's typically in the dark that one's true fears are moved to the forefront of their mind, making them less easy to ignore and overcome. Take claustrophobia, for example, which is the fear of being confined in a small space. It's not uncommon to feel a sense of claustrophobia when surrounded by darkness. The pitch black itself can feel like a heavy barrier that surrounds you, and in some cases and for some people can even feel like it's constricting them or even suffocating them. This feeling of suffocation is not all that unlike the feeling that someone with claustrophobia might get if they were locked within a small closet. Scopophobia is another phobia that comes to fruition when one is presented with the eeriness of darkness. The excessive fear of being stared at becomes almost unavoidable as your mind begins to wander and think about the area around you and the places it can't see. It's typical to feel like you're being watched from the shadows by eyes that you rationally know aren't there, but irrationally fear nonetheless. There's a reason that darkness is a theme in almost every instance of horror, whether that be writing, film, or something else. The root of some of the best instances of horror are when writers take something that people understand quite well and make it scary. Utilizing that idea of fearing the dark takes that idea of taking something that we encounter every single day and turning it into something to be feared and wary of. Writing a scary monster is good enough on its own, but adding that sense of not being able to see what it is we're supposed to be afraid of makes it all the scarier. Writing stories about ghosts, werewolves, vampires, and the such can all be scary and frightening things, but taking something that people encounter every day and don't already fear and turning it into something that people are afraid of is a whole nother level on its own. Well, those are just some of my ideas of things that make the dark scary and how you can incorporate them when doing creative things. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I hope to see you again next time.